anyone who's worked with me or anyone in the Living Inquiries knows how important the nervous system is to what it is that we do. And part of what the nervous system involves is the sensations and energies that we feel, and that we work with lots of different kinds of practices, but certainly with this one. We can access that energy through the breath and our nervous system, but really a lot of what happens in our lives and a lot of our resilience and a lot of how we move in our lives has to do with our nervous systems. When we've had trauma especially, then our nervous systems have responded to that, and we have a certain set of things that happens. So in this particular half hour, I wanted to focus in a little bit on the Living Inquiries and the nervous system. So part of what we talk about will be the nervous system itself, and part will be on the Living Inquiries and how that connects in. Dr. Stephen Porges is a scientist, a researcher and medical doctor who's done a lot of work on the nervous system. I come from the yoga tradition, yoga meditation tradition, where they have this 5,000 years of knowledge about the nervous system. And what they have been teaching about is the vagal, polyvagal system. And now medical science is starting to actually be able to go in and see how that all works. Dr. Stephen Porges is someone who has done that research for the last 20 years. And there's been a lot of other medical research into post-traumatic stress and different things that just weren't available even 10 years ago. The technology now is such that they can really research this and see exactly what it is that happens in our brain, in our bodies, our nervous systems. But basically we have this fight, flight, or freeze response whenever there's any kind of a threat. This Porges' view of the ANS is the autonomic nervous system, talks about the environment outside of ourselves and inside and how it affects the nervous system. Most of us are familiar with fight and flight, but they've also added freeze into that, because freezing can be, in our modern culture, can be more like numbing or distracting ourselves. All of this nervous system activation that many of us are so familiar with is really a ground of a lot of the addictions that we experience. And addictions in this sense, meaning anything that distracts us, that soothes us, that makes us feel more comfortable. And that could be anything from shopping for shoes to drugs or alcohol or working too much or codependency. There's a wide range of ways that shows up. But one of the things that's really, I think, important for me to have understood and for other people is to know that we have these nervous systems in our bodies, and our nervous systems are affected by the experiences that we have. Our nervous systems are designed to work with balance. So in the yoga tradition, they talk about the right side of our body, and the left brain is the active energy, the more solar energy. The left side is our more passive or receptive creative energy. And that these two sides need to be balanced. The sympathetic nervous system is the more activating force, and the parasympathetic nervous system is the more down-regulating force. So if we're overstimulated, whether it's kind of giddy with excitement or overstimulated with fear or something, we need to down-regulate and calm ourselves. So anybody who's experienced anxiety, which is pretty much everybody, it's very helpful to learn how to down-regulate that arousal that happens in our bodies. If we're understimulated, which is more like depression, then we can work with our nervous system to activate and energize ourselves. One of the problems that many of us have with the kind of life that we lead now is that our systems were designed for tigers leaping out of bushes. They weren't designed for the chronic kind of stress that we mostly experience now. So a lot of us are in a constant state of yellow alert or red alert, very rarely coming down to some kind of a feeling of safety. And that has an impact on our nervous systems over time. The good part about that is there's a lot of practices that we can do to help our nervous systems and support our nervous systems. But these aren't things that most of us do on a regular basis or maybe even know about. When I teach meditation to people, one of the first things that I say is, if you know nothing more at the end of this course than to work with your breath and how to do some breathing, then that's the most important thing that you could ever do, is work with your breathing. I'm not going to go in depth into the breathing, but in this course, but there's a whole bunch of my YouTube videos that work with breathing and relaxation. And the way the breath works is that we need some sense of openness and relaxation in our body for the diaphragm muscle to work properly. When we're stressed or tensed, and they see by grade 1, about a third or more of kids are starting to breathe more up in their chest. There's a lot of kind of tightness, and we don't have the opportunity to have the diaphragm muscle really moving well. When that starts to happen, then we don't have that mechanism, the built-in mechanism to let our stress release, and it can be quite damaging as well. We notice a lot of times people will notice that they're holding their breath, and that happens when we're anxious. We have this kind of pattern of breathing in and then kind of not letting it go. Maybe there's some kind of fear going on there, and once we have the pattern, then that's we don't have the opportunity then to calm ourselves. But also it can be quite damaging to the heart muscle. The muscle is meant to have a smooth, continuous flow of the breath. Being mindful of our breath is something that we can train ourselves to do, and it can alert us to some kind of emotional state that's coming up, and we can also change our emotional states through our breathing. So it's a very valuable practice to do. Alternate nostril breathing, joyful breathing, is when we have our hands up in this position like in the picture, and we alternate between one side and the other. There's a lot of therapeutic value to having one side of the brain activated and then the other side, and then the other side. There's a lot of practices that work with that. But one thing that the recent research has found, that I think we all know that when we breathe out a longer exhalation, that it's relaxing. We take a deep breath in and then just kind of relax it out. But what they found is that it actually only takes 6 seconds, but it does take 6 seconds for the relaxation response to be triggered through the exhalation. So when we're breathing out for less than 6 seconds, our vagus nerve never has the stimulation it needs to start to calm us down. So let's take a moment now, and we'll just do a little practice of that. So tune into your body and your breath for a moment. Notice your breathing just as it is right now. And then take a deeper breath in. And then we're going to exhale and you can say it out loud because nobody can hear you. Say the syllable VOO as you're breathing out. Just see if you can make it long and slow. So inhale. And exhale, VOO. Let's do that several times together. And then open your eyes again and just tune into how that, a minute, less than a minute practice actually helps you to feel a bit different. Most of us probably noticed there was a bit of a calming effect to that, and that we relaxed a little bit. It's hard when we're breathing out to maintain that kind of tightness through our shoulders and stuff, so our body might relax a little bit as well. So the really cool thing about this 6-second exhalation is that you can trigger this a lot of different ways. So if you play the flute or something like I do, then you're automatically breathing out long exhales. But singing in a choir, singing in the shower, singing in your car, counting to 6, saying boo, doing a breathing practice, there's all kinds of ways that we can do that. So that's a really important tool to remember, to try and have that 6-second exhalation, especially if you're distressed about something. It really helps to calm your system.